everyone! So today on the Insta Gamers Network, we're going to talk to you about games with a lot of theme and a lot of storytelling. So why don't you just sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, and just watch the show.
Hello, my name is JoeSondow. For today's show about thematic board games, I want to tell you about Battlestar Galactica, the board game, designed by Corey Koneska and published by Fantasy Flight Games. It's based on the 2004 reboot series of Battlestar Galactica, in which some of the malicious artificial Cylons look just like humans and secretly walk amongst them, causing trouble. Everything about this game's design is based on the show. Players pick characters from the show, each with distinct abilities. Some of the characters are secretly Cylons, trying to destroy Galactica and the human race. If you watch Battlestar Galactica, you know it's just one crisis after another. So they have these crisis cards that you draw every turn. For the humans, the objective is to reach Cobalt through a series of faster-than-light jumps, before any of these resources goes to zero: fuel, food, morale, and population. For the Cylons, the objective is to stop the humans, either by making one of these resources go to zero, or by destroying Galactica, or by boarding Galactica with terrifying metal Centurion Cylons to murder the human crew. A Cylon player can reveal their identity if they want to, but it's usually advantageous for them to wait and pretend that they're one of the human players as well, all the while secretly sabotaging skill checks during crisis card secret votes, and sowing discord and paranoia among the human players by accusing them of being Cylons. If a player suspects someone of being a Cylon, they can call for a secret vote to try to get that suspect thrown in the brig, to limit the damage the suspect can do. This can be a disaster if it turns out that the suspect was innocent and the Cylon is still walking free. Pilots and military leaders will often be tasked with facing direct attacks from Cylon ships. These ships appear based on crisis cards, and they attack based on an algorithm. No player needs to directly control the Cylon ships. It's as much a miniature space combat game as it is a game of political intrigue and lying and backstabbing. As enjoyable as it is, I do have some issues with the game. With the standard rules, it can run longer than I'd like, partly because there are so many decisions for a player to make that analysis paralysis is common, but also just because of the sheer number of turns that need to happen to complete a playthrough. I've played the game a few times with my friends, and we can sometimes finish in 2.5 hours, but that's when the Cylons win. For the humans to win, they have to accomplish even more, and it can sometimes take 4 hours. There are some rules variants online that aim to fix the length problem. If you prefer shorter games, I suggest looking for one of those. There are a few. One I'm looking at is at bit.ly/shortbsg. Also, there are a lot of rules. The rulebook is 32 pages, and it makes more sense when you're exercising the play mechanics while you read. But I don't recommend spending game night learning the rules from scratch in a group. Whoever has the game at home can save everyone else a lot of time by acting out a full 6-person game solo. The secret knowledge parts won't make sense, but just going through the motions of acting out turn after turn will make you a rules expert quickly. One other issue is, with 4 or 6 players, there's a Cylon sympathizer card, which balances the game, but it's not as much fun to play as a regular human or a regular Cylon. Fortunately, on Fantasy Flight's website, there is a rules variant that does not use the Cylon sympathizer card. You can also download the entire rulebook there for free. Trust no one, watch your resource levels, work together, plan ahead. So say we all.
Hi everybody, Charmbo.gamer here, and this episode of the Insta Gamers Network will be looking at thematic games, and I would like to show you one of my all-time favourite thematic games, and that would be Star Wars Rebellion. Star Wars Rebellion is a 2-player game, although there is a 4-player variant as well. And it takes you back into the era of Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo, and that ever-present threat of the super weapon, the Death Star. Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, I still think you get a lot out of the game. The gameplay is really, really good. However, it really does shine for Star Wars fans and fans of that original universe. I mean, you and your opponent get to rewrite the events of the original movie and personalize it to your own story. And this happens every time you play it. Every time you play the game, the story turns out differently, and it's really refreshing. It's just thematic brilliance. During setup, the rebel player must decide on the best location to try and hide their rebel base. Once they've selected a system from the systems available in the probe deck, they then secretly tuck it up and under their rebel base location. So many cool thematic experiences can be had during a game. I remember last time Boba Fett swooped down and took Princess Leia, and she was actually lured to the dark side and started to work for the Galactic Empire. The game is played over multiple rounds, and each round has 3 basic phases. The first one being the assignment phase, then we go into the command phase, and then the refresh phase. During the assignment phase, you can take a look at the current objectives you have available to you in your hand, and you can choose one and play it face down so your opponent can't see it. Then you get to choose which leader from your leader pool you'd like to carry out that objective and place it on top. During the command phase, you reveal which objective you'd like to try and carry out, and you would transport your leader to the system where you'd like the objective accomplished. Your opponent may decide to put a leader down of his own to try and counter that objective. It then comes down to dice rolls. The command phase is also the phase where you can actually move your troops. You place your leader, and any troops who are in adjacent systems can move to your location. And if you choose to move into an opponent's system, a galactic battle will take place. If the Galactic Empire find and destroy the rebel secret base, they immediately win. During the refresh phase, the round marker moves up, and the icons here also let you know if you can build more resources or take more leaders. Every time the rebels successfully complete a secret objective, they can move down the round track. If the rebels marker goes on the same space as the round marker, the rebels win the game. There is so much more to the game though than just that brief overview I gave you. In fact, a game can take up to 4 hours, so there's considerable strategy over that time, which makes it for a truly epic experience. So you're after a truly amazing Star Wars experience and strong theme, check out Star Wars Rebellion. You won't be disappointed. I'm Charmbo.gamer, and I'll see you on Instagram.
Come one, come all to see the great Mandini at the World's Fair.
1893.
In 1893. So today's theme, we are looking at World's Fair. So I'm Mandy, the board gaming pinup girl.
I'm Tracy, the gaming maven.
And I'm Steph, the games teacher.
And together we're To Die For Games. So, Thematic Games. This is definitely a good one. This is by Alex Kevern. I think that's correct. I said that right. It's for 2 to 4 players, plays in about 40 minutes, and I believe it's for ages 10 and up.
The basic mechanics of this game, it's an area control game. You're going to place, on your turn, you're going to place one of your supporter cubes on one of the area tiles, the colored area tiles around the Ferris wheel. When you do, you then take all of the cards from the area where you placed your supporter. And they come onto your tableau and are visible for everyone to see. Player then goes to the next player.
How is this game thematic, you say? Well, it actually has a Ferris wheel in the center and a little cable car. And when you take the tickets, you actually move the Ferris wheel, and that is how the game progresses towards its end.
So this game overall, it's thematic and a little windy apparently.
We're in the Ferris wheel, right?
We're in
getting
exactly.
air.
Woo, feel it through your hair.
I'm feeling a little motion sickness.
So definitely a game that fits the theme. So we've got the Ferris wheel, we have the fair, you know what it's about. I really enjoyed this game when we played it.
I was really pleasantly surprised when I first started this game. Wasn't too sure. Loved it by the end.
I really love this game. I won, so.
Yeah, there you go. So, hope you like it. Try and pick it up at some point. I think it's available soon, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hi everyone, my name's Annette. You might know me on social media as nettersplays. Well, today we're all talking about our favorite thematic game. And firstly, I just want to explain what a thematic game means to me. It's pretty much a game that kind of creates a strong theme and a strong sense of story, and the game mechanics in that particular game kind of enhance the emotion of the players. It kind of helps them either by creating certain stresses or senses of excitement in their mechanics. So let me go ahead and just go over a particular game that I really think fits the bill for my favorite, one of my favorite thematic games. So Leaving Earth is a highly thematic game. It actually is about the International Space Race between 1956 and 1976. Now, during this time, a lot of countries were trying to gain better knowledge of how to get up into space and potentially how to get a man onto the moon. During this time, we also had to do a lot of research, we had to do a lot of tests, and take a lot of risk and face a lot of challenges. So this game itself incorporates all of those things and puts it in the palm of the players when they're playing them to kind of make them feel like they are the actual scientists during this time. So let me go over those aspects with you as well. One of the things that this game does is there's research, testing, and there's rockets, of course. So these different rockets like the Juno, Atlas, Soyuz, and Saturn. The Saturn is the big US rockets that got the man on the moon. But you're going to have to test these out. So if you want to get, for example, a Juno rocket and test it out, you're going to have to do some research. So you're going to get these research cards and you're going to end up drawing 3 cards randomly, whether the rocket is going to be successful or if it's going to fail. So eventually you'll get better and better at sending these rockets out, at doing different types of research with landings and re-entries and rendezvous. And so it kind of tests what you're actually sending out into space. I really like that aspect in this game. Another little minor example is how are we going to get space probes out into suborbital flight? Well, the difficulty is a difficulty of 3 for suborbital flight. If you want to get something into orbit, it's going to have a difficulty of 8. Now the cool thing is, if you're going to try to get a small little space probe out into space, it has a mass of 1. So if I use one of those rockets to send it up, you can send it up with a thrust power of 4. So the problem is, every time you add a rocket, you're going to add some mass to these things. And the amount of difficulty is going to increase because the amount of mass that you're sending up into space is increasing as well. So it's not a linear kind of mathematical calculation, but the game designer actually incorporates this little small cheat sheet to calculate the amount of mass payload. And that's really important and really helpful for the players, and it makes it feel like you're actually creating these calculations and plannings for these different types of missions out into space. So during this time, there's also a lot of space exploration and sense of discovery. So in this game, I'm going to go ahead and discover what is out on the moon. So on the moon, we didn't know exactly what was on there. It could be made up of dust, it could have a lot of solar radiation, we don't know. But if we eventually do scan the moon, we will actually find things like, oh, well, it's just a moon. Or maybe it can destroy our spacecraft because it's just too plain dusty. It's just too dusty and we're just going to be consumed by dust. Or there's valuable mineral samples on Earth. So maybe there is substance that we can use on Earth that is on the moon. Or maybe there's microbes, there's life on the moon. We didn't know this. So this is how the game itself kind of changes and alters history, because during this time, no one knew what was happening, and during this game, we're not sure what we're going to discover as well. Leaving Earth is really dear to me simply because I studied physics and I studied mathematics, and this game actually simulates the space race, which I grew up really interested in. So this is why this game feels very thematic to me, and why it really intrigues me in the sense of this amount of discovery and exploration that it recreates. So yeah, thanks for watching, you guys, and I hope you can eventually play this game. So bye.
Hello, it's Lindsay here. You might know me as shinyhappymeeple on Instagram, and this episode is about thematic games, and I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to talk about one of my absolute favourite games, and that is the expandable card game Doomtown Reloaded. I first played this game a couple of years ago. I didn't expect to think much of it, and I was pretty much blown away by it. I thought it was absolutely awesome, and got mildly obsessed with it for a few months. And I still love it now. I'm not as obsessed with it as I was, but I still think it's a great game. And it's also a little bit poignant because the publisher AEG, well, it's run its course with them and they're not printing it anymore, and there's going to be no more expansions. And I'm assuming that means there's not going to be more games printed. So that's a bit of a shame, but it's not too late to get involved. It's not too late, okay? I'm going to tell you about why I think Doomtown Reloaded is a great thematic game, and hopefully you want to play it. We are transported to the weird west town of Gomorrah. Here you can choose to play with one of many different factions, such as the baddies, the Sloan Gang, the goodies, the law dogs, or the magical weirdos, the fourth ring. They're my personal favourites. What we're trying to do is gain more control than our opponent has influence. The control is really tied up in the deeds that you can purchase throughout the game, and they generate your income for you. And you can also purchase more dudes, the characters, who will join your posse, and they gain you your influence points. So you've got influence and you've got your control. And this goes up and down throughout the game, depending on whether your players die or whether there's a hex put on them. And the deeds, well, you can move your players into your opponent's deeds and try and take control. And this is when you can start shootouts. Now the shootouts is where the game gets like its real thematic edge, because we're using our cards that double up as poker cards, and we play poker. But the amount of cards you can draw and redraw are determined by the amount of bullets that you have and whether you're a stud or a draw. So the studs are the silver bullets, the draws are the gold ones, and that means that you can pick up a certain number of cards and discard a certain number. So that can really affect the outcome. Also, you have shootout abilities that you can play, so that's when you're playing the card game as well, like a cheating resolution. So if your opponent's got cheating hands, then you can play this card on them. Or during the shootout stage, you can use a card like Stun Your Eyes, so you can minus a dude's bullets in a shootout. So there's all sorts of cool things you can do within the card game, but you're also playing poker. And this kind of goes back and forth. You can choose to get the hell out of there if you're on a losing streak, or you can stay in all guns blazing and hope for the best. Throughout the game, you can also attach various goods to your characters, such as like a horse, a flamethrower, a hex like a soul blast. So there's all sorts of cool things you can do to pump up your character, their abilities, their bullets, and it really does kind of all come to a big head when you do the shootouts, and that's the absolute best bit, and that's the most thematic bit. So I just about scraped the surface there of Doomtown Reloaded. That's like the barest bones of it. There is so much more going on in this game. I suggest if you haven't played it or you wasn't quite sure before, play it. Go and buy a last minute copy, or borrow one off a friend, or go to a board game cafe and play it, because it's really awesome. Games can take like 20 minutes, they can take 3 hours. You just don't know what's going to happen. And I think you'll have a good time. You'll be wearing like cowboy hats and listening to Western music you'll find on YouTube, and watching loads of movies and drinking, like cowboy movies, and drinking whiskey. Oh, that was probably just me. Anyway, thank you for listening to me talk about Doomtown Reloaded, and let's move on to the next Instagamer. Thanks. Bye. Ooh.
On the surface, Time Story looks to be completely generic. It's got that stark Apple design aesthetic. The majority of the board is white or blank. The chits are merely different colored rectangles even. At best, one would think that the theme is some sort of sleek, futuristic science fiction story. But once you flip over the top card of that deck, an entire world opens up. Time Stories is always compared to Choose Your Own Adventure books. I personally like the less popular Twist-A-Plot books, mainly written by Goosebumps author R.L. Stine. This may seem like a bad thing to some. I mean, it's mainly reading. Where's the gameplay? Oh, but just like a good book, you are sucked into the story, immersed into the lush worlds created by each different module. Suddenly, like the never-ending story, you are in the game. You are a patient in a 1920s asylum. You are an elf warrior in a fantastical world of fairies and dragons. You are in a post-apocalyptic version of the 1990s. Much like a game of Dungeons and Dragons, gone is the sheet of graph paper representing your map, or in this case a blank playing board with a few sparse rectangles. And now you are in the time and world of that game. For those of you looking for more strategy and mechanics in a game, Time Stories is not for you, since the game is 90% story focused. But For those of you looking for a great time with some friends, bickering and oohing and ahhing over the choices that you'll make, inevitably needing to start the scenario over several times before you beat it, it doesn't get much better than Time Stories.
Alright, well, welcome back. So that's the end of our show. I hope you enjoyed it, and we're also very curious to hear what your favorite thematic game is. So please leave us some comments below, and make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. So thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll see you all later. Bye!